So now that all teachers have stood up, while standing, all those who never imagined or even thought that they would end up in teaching profession, sit down. You never thought of it. It never crossed your mind. So if you are in that category, kindly just sit down. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you very much for those of you who are still standing. You can sit down. We want to talk about effective mentorship. I am so glad that professionals can begin to think of teaching as a requirement in their areas of profession, and that medical doctors can think it is important that we talk about teaching or education, for that matter, for health professionals. And a curriculum can be well designed, with all the intentions and purposes, clearly designed with all the goals clearly articulated and expected learning outcomes. But where the rubber meets the road is at the delivery point. So that we have been taken through developing a curriculum, creating a curriculum from scratch, the different teaching strategies, the different methodologies that we use. But now, it does not matter how good the curriculum is if the delivery is not thought of. And that is what brings us to effective mentoring. You have been introduced, you know who I am. And when you look at that diagram, I hope it is visible. I don't know what comes to your mind. We will discuss it when we finish. Yeah, I don't know what you think of that diagram. The people there don't have heads. So in the overview of mentoring, in the context of health education, what are we going to talk about? What is mentoring? Why? Where and how? Why would we think about mentoring and how? So what is mentoring? Remember, I am defining this in the context of health education, within the teaching of the health education professionals. Mentoring means facilitating students, helping by promoting a continuous learning process and supporting the professional development of their competencies, including their growth in knowledge, skills, and attitudes. This is according to a gentleman in 2019. And so, mentoring, therefore, must be purposeful, it must be intentional, it must be deliberate. It must provide guidance, support, and encouragement to learners as they navigate the complexities of medical training and practice. Why do we need mentoring then? Having known what it is. We begin from the foundation that teachers occupy a central position in any educational system. They influence to a great extent the quality of educational output or outcomes. And so as a mentor, and in this context, a mentor who is teaching in medical health education or professionals, you occupy a very important role. You are the one who stands between the curriculum being achieved and it not being achieved. That is how important you are in that system. The curriculum provides the goal and objectives that guide instruction, while pedagogy offers how those goals and objectives are achieved. And so we have done the curriculum, we already have it, well thought out, content, top class. We have done all that we need, we have put all we need to put to ensure that we have a good doctor. To ensure that we have a good doctor who can also teach other doctors. So where the problem comes is pedagogy, which is how the goals and the objectives will be achieved. Content is given. So why do we still think about curriculum, mentoring? While curriculum is the content that the learner must be taught, Classroom teacher or mentor have significant responsibility for the control over how curriculum is presented and delivered. And that is why we say it is intentional, it is deliberate, it is purposeful. In practice, an inspired and talented mentors from teachers can energize dull content and find ways to link it to real life, while a mediocre or unmotivated teacher or mentor can compromise the appeal of the most relevant and imaginative curriculum by poor delivery. That is how it is important. So that it's either you are in the category of inspired and talented or mediocre and unmotivated. Not in the content, but in pedagogy. Students model mentors' behaviors. That is why we must talk about mentoring. It is never too far from you. They model your behaviors. And so it is never too far from you. And let me bring it close so that you see how close it is to you. Those whom you are teaching today will treat you, will treat your children, will teach your children, will teach your children's children. So it is not far from you. And that is why it has to be very purposeful, it has to be deliberate, it has to be thoughtful. A mentor must therefore, with that background, be inclusive, creating an environment where all individuals, regardless of their backgrounds, identity, and experiences, feel valued, respected, and empowered to fully participate and thrive, as we will see when we continue. And so what is the context of mentoring that we want to talk about within the medical education? We have talked about curriculum. We are talking about mentorship within the context of curriculum. In curriculum, there are 4 types of curriculum. There is the explicit curriculum, the subjects that will be taught, and the knowledge and skills that school expects successful students to acquire. The skills and the knowledge you expect a successful doctor to have at the end of the training. Explicit. Then there is the implicit curriculum. The lessons that arise from the culture of the school and the behaviors, attitudes, and expectations that characterize that culture that influence education outcomes. The non-curriculum. The options students are not afforded, the concept, the skills that are not part of the intellectual repertoire, and finally the extracurriculum experiences. And these are all of the school-sponsored programs, athletics, band, etc., that are intended to supplement the academic aspect of the school experience. Stay with me. This is important as we will see it. And so what is the other context that we need to look at as we look at mentoring? The learner. The learner. From yesterday, we've been continuously told that the learners we are dealing with have evolved. They are not like you and I, and they're not like some of us who came before us. The 21st century learner is self-directed learner because of the space where they find themselves in. They have information. They are globally aware. So you will not tell them about something that is happening in Japan that they cannot find out. You will not tell them about your experience 20 years down the line in US that has changed that they cannot find about, know about. They are a communicator. They will tell you. We have told them a story of a person who finished teaching and he asked the learners to ask questions and there was no hand raised. Then one of the learners boldly raised their hand and said, "How can we ask you questions and you have done nothing?" That is the kind of learner we are dealing with, a communicator. Because at the levels where they are trained, in the wake of CBC, these learners are exposed to expressing themselves. They are more aware, they are innovators, Because of the technology that is at their disposal, they try around so many things. They are financially and economically literate. They have information and media literacy. They are collaborators. So what you will think that they are colluding in a card that probably you have given them, for them that is collaboration. It is not collusion. They are civically engaged, and they are also problem solvers because of the environment they have found themselves in, a critical thinker. And so, as you purpose your mentoring, think of the learner that you're going to mentor, because that is the space they operate in. And so, context as we continue. We have talked about the curriculum, we have talked about the learner. And so what is the other context that you need to think about as you talk about your mentoring, as you think of mentoring? Lesson planning. Have you done it for so long until you don't need to prepare? You have it on your head, you just wake up and go to class. Presentation of content. Does what matter is that the content is received and not really how it is presented? Does the end justify the means for you? Relevance of the content. When you are just talking about the things that you did in the 80s and you are mesmerized about them, how relevant are they to this learner that you're dealing with today? There are things they can't relate to. Adequacy of content to lesson time. Are you the type who has too much content? That within 40 minutes you want to deliver a 3-hour lesson. You can finish as long as you have checked the box you taught. Strategies and methodologies appropriate for content. There are some strategies and methodologies that will never be appropriate for all content. And so do you think of it before you come to class? Do you think of it before you come up to mentor this young professional within your profession? Teaching skills, motivation, reinforcement, questioning, stimulus variation. Are you the type who will tell a learner that that answer is not right? I wish you didn't say it. Motivation, reinforcement, questioning. Verbal exposition. You realized when I was telling you about communication, it got to a point when I was so low that some of you could not hear and you were wondering. So that is how we are in class, as we will see as we continue. Communication, verbal or non-verbal. Are the things you are not saying more than what you should have said? The gestures you use in class. The way you look at students. Are you the type who will stand in front and remain there until the lesson ends? The things you are not saying are communicating more than the things you are saying. Classroom organization and management, learner participation, teaching and learning, teacher and learner rapport, learner participation, things like just knowing your learner by name. And you are privileged to have very few learners compared to us in education. Are you the type who says, hey, Nani? Where? You. And teacher personality, as we will see as we continue. And so we have talked about the 4 types of curriculum, and we have looked at the implicit curriculum. We have agreed is well taken care of because it is written by experts, well thought out. People, stakeholders have been involved, and so it is well thought out. The content of the deliverer is not in question because the person, the mentor, is an expert in that field. And so the content is not in question. You are a doctor, you are a dentist, you are a gynecologist, you have excelled with regards to subject matter content. We are not questioning. And so that brings us, how then do we mentor? Because we have agreed that content taken care of. It brings us to the hidden curriculum or the implicit curriculum. And this is where the rubber meets the road. You have the content, you have the curriculum, and you have the best intentions. You really want your learners to learn. According to Bostrom 2010, he argues that hidden curriculum, or implicit curriculum for that matter, refers to student learning that is not described by curriculum planners or teachers as an explicit aim of instruction, even though it results from deliberate practice and organizational structures. It refers to the unspoken or implicit values, behaviors, procedures, and norms that exist in educational setting. All the unintended that eventually end up informing the attitude, the behavior, and the outcomes of the learner. You have your content, you have a curriculum to implement. But all these others that are ignored, that are silent, are the things that end up influencing attitude, behavior, and outcomes. Hidden concepts that describes the often unarticulated and unknowledge things students learn in classroom that affects their attitude, behavior, and learning experience. This includes perspectives and attitudes that students learn in a learning environment that influence their educational outcomes. There is an assumption that people in the medical field make. I don't know whether some of us have also made that assumption. Because you are teaching the cream of the cream of the society, you assume they should know. They should know. They are the best. They should know. Just like you are the best, you know. The assumption is two-way. Okay? So even the learners know that you are the best, you should know. And the lecturers too, the mentors too, believe that because they have taken the best, then those best should know. And that is now where the first hidden curriculum begins. You are beginning from the premise that you are dealing with people who have elevated knowledge. And oftentimes it's never the case. They may have excelled in high school, but in this new discipline, they are novice. They don't know. They don't know. Okay? They don't know. So what are some of the forms of hidden curriculum that we deal with in the school that affects educational outcome? The physical, organizational learning environment. You walk into a lecture hall, it is packed with chairs, and you just walk in and teach. That is none of your business. You came to lecture. You teach, you finish. How faculty treats students? The first treatment I said, you assume they know. So they should be knowing. These are simple things. How can you not know? How can you not know? How role models behave around students, other staff, and each other. I have not been in your space, but I have been in the space of teachers. And you will see, I don't know whether there is also clustering of disciplines in medicine. For example, in schools, you will find that curriculum is not differentiated, especially at primary school level. But you will find that female teachers will cluster in lower levels of education and also in art-based subjects. I don't know whether there are also disciplines, maybe pediatricians are female. I don't know. I don't know whether it also cuts across. But it is very glaring in education setups where you will find all of you are taken through the same curriculum, but somehow there is clustering towards certain subjects. You will find that the teachers of preschool up to grade 3 will tend to be females. Then teachers of serious classes, grade 6, 7, 8, will tend to be male. Teachers of art subjects will tend to be female. Yet they were taken through the same curriculum. Teachers of serious subjects like STEM will tend to be men. And so the way you treat and behave informs decision, informs attitude, informs outcomes. Peer groupings, who belongs with whom, insiders versus outsiders. In pediatrics, for example, it is a certain group, and we are the ones who are here. In gynecology, for example, groupings, oral culture, the way you speak, and I want to add here even the written culture. I was just asking one of you if it is part of your training to write things that are not legible. You see how culture, and who started it and why have we continued if we are all shaking our heads? Oral and written culture. The things we do affect our mentees. Stereotypical depictions of people, best embedded in case studies. Manifestations of power and hierarchy, who has it and who does not have it, and how a mentor behaves and what he preaches. What you say versus what you do. So, those are some of the forms of hidden curriculum. So how does it manifest in class? So that when you go to mentor, when you go to class, you are then conscious that these things that I do eventually end up affecting educational outcomes. And so, I began by telling you that your students model your behavior. They model on you. I am sure some of you are a complete replica of those mentors that they thought were outstanding to them, that they looked up to. And so they say, if I become a doctor, I want to be like so-and-so. In their dressing, in the way they talk, in the way they act, in the way they treat people. That is how important a mentor is. Students model on your behaviors. And so, one of the manifestations is through unconscious bias. Unconscious biases held by faculty and staff, I think I am okay now, and staff may influence teaching and evaluation of students' performance, leading to disparities in grading, feedback, and opportunities for advancement. And opportunities for advancement. Bias may manifest in the form of lower expectations, harsher criticism, or overlooking achievements of other students. Already you have looked at this learner in your class and you have categorized them under a certain category. This one cannot perform. And so you don't expect anything from them. And so even when they don't meet standards, it is okay. You have already looked at this one, you have categorized them as overperformers. And so when they do not live up to, there's so much criticism about them and they're harsh. And so it affects the way they perform. And this would cause you to either overlook their achievements, howsoever minimal, or howsoever great. Hostile learning environment, intimidation, fear, and language may undermine psychological safety and inhibit academic engagement and impede learning and professional development. Do you care about the environment where you want to teach? With your language, do you care? Or are you the ones, I was giving an example to some colleagues of mine, I was telling them that there is this math teacher who gets in class and tells you, don't even bother, you will not understand. These ones are serious things. You will not understand. You will not understand. Are you the kind of teacher who comes up with, for example, genetics, and you make it so difficult with jargons and language that already the students have seen themselves failing? And so they withdraw. Misaggressions, the subtle verbal, non-verbal behaviors or comments that communicate hostilities or derogation. Exclusionary behaviors, such as favoritism, you have your favorites, gatekeeping, undermining inclusivity, stereotype confirmations, diminished psychological safety, and so on. Where do you want to be as an effective mentor? And remember, we agreed this starts from lesson planning. Right from the time you have not stepped foot in that class. You already think of this. 6 minutes. Expertise and experience, both in subject content and in pedagogy. Positive attitude, this is infectious and motivating. Effective communication, empathy and patience, willingness to share mistakes, ethical integrity. I think that is where there is a problem. Someone told us that in Kenya we can't count votes because of some of those things. Support for development, openness to learning, respect to diversity. And so, as I finish, a bad curriculum, well taught, is invariably better experience for students than a good curriculum badly taught. Pedagogy trumps curriculum. More precisely, pedagogy is curriculum because what matters is how things are taught rather than what is taught. There is an example of hidden curriculum study within your fields, and so I was not talking about something that is outside your space. This was a hidden curriculum in anatomy education. They were just looking at that space and find, are there things that can impede learning in that space? So that at the end of the day, you do not meet your objective. I will share this, it's a long study. It is found in the Springer Journal. You will look at it, 2014. And finally, the delicate balance of mentoring someone is not creating them. It is not creating them into your own image, but giving them an opportunity to create themselves. Thank you very much. And in the spirit of inclusion, I hope I appeal to all of you. Thank you, Asante Sana, Merci, Erukamano, Kogoi, Ejok Noi, and this one is Giriama, the last one. Giriama. Thank you very much.